Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast and the Dollar Vigilante. This is our first co-produced video that we've ever done, and that's because a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about in this edition of Anarchast or TDV has a lot to do with financial stuff and also investments. And so for our subscribers at the Dollar Vigilante, we're also including this video. But this is also a past Anarchast guest, and that's why he's on Anarchast as well. It's Chris Horlacher. He's a chartered accountant in the Toronto area in Canada. I've known him for many years. He's been down here to Acapulco, and just like many past Anarchast guests, he's quite entrepreneurial, and he's come up with a new company that's called Equibit. And for people interested in the stock market, interested in anything to do with financial related services, or interested in the blockchain technology, you'll want to pay attention to this. It's very interesting. So Chris, first of all, thanks for coming back on with me. It's been almost 4 years. It's been a long time. You were on episode 15 of Anarchast.
Yeah, and it's great to see all of that we've both accomplished since then. We've both been very busy guys, and congratulations on all your success with TDV. I love what you're doing, and keep it up. I think you're doing good work, and hopefully, with what we're talking about today, I'll be also jumping into the mix and making a good contribution here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you're also considering coming down to Acapulco 2016, which we still haven't announced the dates, but we will in the coming weeks. I know you have a busy travel schedule, but hopefully you can make it down, because we have pretty much an entire day on cryptocurrencies and blockchain-related technologies at Acapulco, so this would fit in great. So let's get started right away on Equibit. Tell everyone about this idea that you've come up with.
So the idea started years and years ago. I first heard about Bitcoin in about 2010, right about when I started getting into the whole anarcho-capitalist, investment mindset. And so it really excited me. I'd known about peer-to-peer market or peer-to-peer networks before. I'd been using, numerous file sharing programs up until that point. And the concept of digital scarcity really, really excited me because I knew this was going to pave the way for entirely new industries to be built upon this concept. And it's really digital scarcity. I can't really stress that term enough. It's a new word that, in the 21st century, we're going to have to get used to, because we're used to unlimited data. You can copy it, you can move it around, you can send it anywhere, you can receive it from anywhere, and there's no limits on this data. But the concept of me taking a piece of my data and giving it to somebody else and I don't have it anymore, that's new to the internet. And it's a big challenge for people to get over that first hurdle. But once you do, a whole new world opens up to you, and the possibilities are just absolutely amazing. And so
yeah, I agree.
When I realized that we were moving into this kind of an age, the wheels start turning, and being in the securities industry at that time, I was the chief financial officer of Euro-Pacific Canada, which is Peter Schiff's extension of Euro-Pacific Capital into Canada. And so I was front row seat to the securities industry as it existed today. And what I noticed was that it was basically still a 100-year-old model of doing business for moving securities, just maybe with updated a few updates to the technology in terms of computerization to take care of a lot of the menial tasks. But the structure of the industry is the same as it's been for a century, and it's kind of locked into that shape by government regulations, and it's created certain, I wouldn't say monopolies, but there's privileged positions in the network of companies that comes together to create a securities industry that really, they're past their expiration date. And this is what Equibit is all about. So experiencing the over-the-counter market the way I did when I was at that brokerage, I got to see how the system currently worked and where the inefficiencies were. And really the component that really kind of stuck in my mind were the depositories and the transfer agents. And these two kinds of companies, they don't seem to do a lot of particularly difficult stuff, again, what they're doing is they're essentially just doing bookkeeping entries, a lot like a central bank will, where it's just adjusting people's accounts and it's moving securities from one account into another account and changing the name on them. You also, this is where terms like, like the street name of a security comes from. So depending on where the security is registered, it may have a street name or it may have another kind of name. It may be registered in the broker's name or the investor's actual name if you want to directly register your securities. So, and then they also handle things like polling your shareholders, collecting the votes, doing the tabulation on shareholder resolutions. And so a lot of things that really can be handled quite easily by a computer system. And when Bitcoin came out and I managed to wrap my head around this new technology, I realized that we can put all of these features and all of this work can happen on a blockchain, on a system that is completely open, completely transparent, and free. And this is where, a system like this, I think, really has huge benefits, because the securities industry, in terms of, all costs are eventually passed on to the customer. And transfer agencies and depositories cost investors billions of dollars per year in fees, which will all go with a system like this, laying the foundation of a new securities industry. And this is only the beginning of what Equibit can be used for. But we'll immediately put billions of dollars back into the pockets of investors as people adopt this system. And new exchanges and new kinds of security services will grow up around the Equibit platform. So Equibit right now is sort of step one in a much larger securities market. And going back through history, again, the securities industry started as as an over-the-counter marketplace. The shares were all private. There were no big, the New York Stock Exchange didn't start until hundreds of years after the concept of a stock was invented. I think the first joint stock corporations were from the Netherlands back in the 1600s. So they were around quite a while before the London Stock Exchange popped up. And so a stock exchange is a market maker. They take all of the bids and asks and they match them together and they form a price. And on an OTC, it's much different. Transactions are usually done one-to-one. Both parties know each other, or they're acting through a broker. And so Equibit makes this whole process extremely efficient by taking out the need for a central depository and a transfer agent. We now have a decentralized platform with world-class security that is real-time, 24/7, instantaneous settlement, and unforgeable securities. And there's a few other twists in, going back to forgeable securities. I mean, can you believe in this day and age, forged securities it's a bigger problem now than it's ever been. Securities fraud is running wild out there. And so many people out there are just conjuring up bonds or stocks, and some people who do that call themselves central banks or governments, and they're probably the best at it. So the industry it seemed to me that the industry was just begging for a solution like this. And I happen to feel that I was blessed with being the right guy at the right time with the right idea, and happily enough, I found some really great developers to work with. David Mondras, Nathan Wozniak, Mark Goddard, all fantastic, talented people, some of the best coders I've ever met in my life. So we are, we're pouring our hearts and souls into this. We've got our white paper written. We've worked out all of the kinks. So we're heading into the construction phase of this project now.
That's great. One of your developers, Mark Goddard, used to work with us as a contractor for the Dollar Vigilante, so I know him quite well. Going back to your comment on how the current security system is today, yeah, it is so dinosaur. It's unbelievably dinosaur. It's just sort of like the banks in a way. These big financial institutions that really don't have much competition, they move so slow. And I, of course, started Stockhouse.com in Canada in 1994, and it's still the largest financial website in Canada. So I've dealt with stock markets around the world. And it's unbelievable how slow they are on these things. And the whole system is ridiculous, as you pointed out. And for most people don't know this, but when you buy a stock in a brokerage account, it doesn't actually go in your name. It says, Chris said, it goes into street form because it takes way too much work to actually put it in your own name. They'd have to send it somewhere, verify it, get it sent back. And they don't want to do that, the brokerage. So all of your shares, unless you actually went through the actual trouble of registering them yourself, are actually in the name of your brokerage. And so when your brokerage goes bankrupt, those shares are considered its assets. And we actually wrote for Dollar Vigilante subscribers, which is totally free for subscribers, bulletproof shares years ago to tell you how to register your shares. We'll also have a link to that down below if you just want to buy it. I believe it's $40 or something. But the point of this is that it's archaic, but you're starting to see people like the New York Stock Exchange just made some serious investments into some Bitcoin-related companies, or at least cryptocurrency or blockchain-related companies. So they are waking up that they have to get on this. But as usual, I think they're going to be way too slow. And I always think that people like yourself who come up with these things, and you've got a small team and you just move forward as quick as possible, you've got quite a bit of advantage. Of course, they've got the advantage on one side with relationships with all the people on the stock market today. So they could say, hey, we're going to move this over to this new blockchain related one. If they do that, they'd probably be too scared to do that anyway. But you guys have the real opportunity here. So this is a real ground floor seed opportunity. I know you're accepting investment right now. And just so people know, these are the kind of deals. I'm not saying this is going to work out. It's going to be worth millions of dollars one day. I'm just saying that, or billions of dollars is totally possible. I'm just saying that this is a very interesting idea that I'm very interested in. And these are the kinds of things that you don't normally get access to. So we're actually giving this first to Dollar Vigilante subscribers. So they're going to see this first. They'll have the first access to this investment if they so choose to invest. And I'm not saying, again, I don't know everything about the company. I'm just saying it looks pretty interesting to me. And so if you're a seed or angel investor type person, or even a brokerage, I'm actually going to show this around to a few people I know who own brokerages and say, you guys should be investing big time in this. Although I think maybe I'll wait until all of our people get in first. But why don't you go ahead and tell people about what you're doing right now, what's the status of the company, how you're going to be accepting some investment, and things like that.
So the vehicle for investors to join the team is currently being set up. I'm in discussions with a securities lawyer right now. We want to make sure that we do this right because we have seen other businesses attempt to raise money in these scenarios, and things go bad pretty quickly for them because they haven't put together the right structure. So being a chartered accountant myself, this was obviously one of my top concerns, and I'm working very hard to make sure that we can create an investment vehicle for people to join us in a safe, legal way, that everything is done right. So for now, tentatively, what we're going to be doing is setting up an Ontario partnership. There will be two classes of partners. There'll be the general partners, which is the team that's actively working on the project. And then there'll be the limited partners. And then the limited partners will be the people who are investing their cash, their Bitcoin or et cetera into the venture. Once the development is complete and the system goes online, right now the way we're designing the system is it will expand just the same way that Bitcoin expands. So there'll be 21 million units in total, but the first million units will be pre-mined. So now that million units will be split 50-50 between the limited and general partners. And then, so of course, the limited partners will receive a share of these pre-mined units that is equivalent to the relative number of dollars that they invested. At which point the partnership will be wound up and finished off, because what we'll be doing is we'll then be transitioning any leftover resources into a non-profit foundation that we're going to register in Switzerland. And why Switzerland, you might be asking yourself. Well, Switzerland is becoming a hotbed of blockchain development activity. The Ethereum project is already over there. They're working with dozens of developers. So there's a very strong talent base there in Switzerland. The laws surrounding the type of nonprofit in Switzerland that we're going to create, it's called a Verein. In Switzerland, they lend itself very well to this particular type of an organization. And so we just feel, after doing a lot of research on where we would want to locate this, Switzerland seems to be the right place. And so the foundation, all of the partners will get lifetime memberships in the foundation, and then the foundation will be there to continue ongoing development of this open source platform, also do marketing, further research, and plugins. Because out of the box, we're planning on having this system compatible with Bitcoin. So it's going to be, I think, I believe, the first multi-coin Bitcoin / other coin application. So we've created a system that straddles the two chains. So there's going to be the Equibit blockchain for equity transactions, and then the Bitcoin blockchain for monetary transactions. And the system is coordinating between the two so that people can, or issuers can, easily pay Bitcoin dividends to their investors. We can also, in the future, we want to make the system modular so that if, let's say Bitcoin doesn't win in the long run in the cryptocurrency wars, something else does, we can always just create a plugin for that and add it into the system. And the goal is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's going to basically look like your standard trading screen where you'll have your cash accounts and then your securities all listed. And we're also working on other plugins, such as a document workflow pack. So you can set where you are regionally, if you're in Canada, if you're in the United States, if you're in another country. And if you want to be an issuer, then we can, we're also hoping through the foundation to be programming document workflow packs. So it'll be like a lawyer is walking you through the whole process step by step, saying, okay, if this is the company you've got and these are the investors you're going for, then this is the documents that you need to prepare in order to stay compliant with your regional securities legislation.
Very interesting. This gets really... It's a very complicated topic, all these things, and it's really hard to get your head around, including myself. I'm having a hard time getting my head around exactly how this will all work, but that's just how these things are. When the internet first came out, no one really knew what was going to happen. You just put it out in the wild and see what happens. Same with Bitcoin. No one really knew, and then it just took off. Now there's so many people doing things with Bitcoin. I think this will be similar. So it's a very interesting thing you're trying to do there, and I hope it works because I hate the current way that the stock markets work, and I see nothing but bad things happening in the stock market for the next little while anyway, so they might be hurting quite bad fairly soon anyway, so it'll be an interesting opportunity for you. And of course, this can happen anywhere in the world, so you don't have to just focus on the U.S. market or Canadian market where you are. This could be a global thing. Yeah,
well, and that's kind of where I see adoption coming from. I see probably the early adopters are going to be coming from countries that don't have a particularly developed financial industry.
That's what I was thinking as well.
So I can imagine all the millions of small businesses, people in sub-Saharan Africa or Eastern Europe or places that don't have financial markets, where people want to start a business and they want to raise money, but they don't have a trustworthy means of doing so. And that's really what Equibit is all about. We want to make it easy. We want to bring investors and companies together in the most transparent, most efficient way with the least costs. And that I think this really delivers that in a very powerful way, because it doesn't require any central authorities. It doesn't require it doesn't require much of anything. You just have to know that the system works, and what's yours is yours. Once these securities are registered at your address, you have the same control over your securities as you do a Bitcoin. They can't be sequestered, they're seized, or you can't have your accounts frozen. So as far as mobility of capital, it's maximized in a way that you can't get through a traditional brokerage or
Yeah,
any sort of investment platform.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about all the possibilities. What's the next step for Equibit? So I know that you're basically just sort of at the you've been working on it for a while, but you have it at the point now where you're willing to accept investment. When you get that investment, what are the next steps for Equibit?
Well, so the next steps is immediately get to development. We have our white paper published. We've worked out all of the technical issues. And, they were quite challenging. Figuring out how to synchronize two blockchains together, was no easy task. But we managed to do that. And, so the white paper touches on some of those concepts of how we were able to make sure that, somebody who's holding Equibits at an Equibit address is going to receive their Bitcoins at the appropriate Bitcoin address. And so those were the kinds of technical challenges that, we really spent a lot of time rolling our heads around to make sure that we came up with something that was, not only worked, but it was also elegant and wouldn't add a lot of bloat to the blockchain. So we're going to start building it, investors or no investors. Obviously, investment helps. We'll be able to bring in more developers than we otherwise would be able to and get this out earlier. With investors, we're probably, we should be able to meet our January 1st, 2016 public launch date. I've been working, long and hard on an investor presentation deck. So all the details about all the individual steps from A to Z are all going to be written out there. So anybody who's interested, I encourage them to email us at info@equibit.org, and I'll be happy to send them the full investor deck.
That's great. And as I mentioned, by the time you see this on the internet, if you're not a Dollar Vigilante subscriber, the Dollar Vigilante subscribers will already have seen this, and this might already be closed, the financing. But if not, contact Chris, and he'll send you information. We'll also have that information in the upcoming issue of the Dollar Vigilante. So I find this to be a very fascinating and interesting project, and I hope it works, as I said, because, and I think it will in one form or another, whether this one works or another one works, or this is where it's all headed. So you can see this is the road to go. And even the New York Stock Exchange, as I mentioned, is starting to invest in Bitcoin companies because they see they have to know something about this area, but they're going to be way too slow, way behind the entrepreneurs who are starting with small teams out there and don't have a huge bureaucracy and huge regulations and huge everything the government puts on all these the financial system. So very interesting. Do you want to finish up with anything, Chris, or is that it for today? Please visit equibit.org, download the white paper. We'll continue building up that web page, and our team is hard at work working on the application. So we'll get that out as soon as we can. But every bit helps. So if you're interested, shoot us off an email. Every bit helps. Good. I like that. All right. So that's it for both the Dollar Vigilante and Anarchast. So I'll finish off with both of our sign-offs. Peace, love, and anarchy, and stay safe out there.
Thanks, Jeff.
When you consider that you have to spend all your time basically unteaching what your kids just learned.
So not only must the government recognize natural rights, but the government can't disparage them. Unfortunately, the people in the government have a hole in their copy where the Second Amendment is, the Ninth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment.
So, this is not so saintly. I mean, because he's got the reputation of favoring, ending slavery. But he wasn't an opponent of slavery. The abolitionists were opponent of slavery, but not Abe Lincoln.
I mean, the actual argument and the explanation is pretty darn simple. I mean, it's so simple as to almost be self-evident. I mean, things like self-ownership and the non-aggression principle, it takes about 3 seconds to demonstrate that government can't be legitimate.
Well, I think human beings have the right to shape their own reality. And that's what's been taken away from us. We are participating involuntarily in a system that shapes our reality for us. And the first step is to not allow that.
You're paying off your debt, you have to pay off your car loans, your mortgage, you have to maybe even live with your parents, and then you look back at your life and you did nothing. You never challenged yourself. You never experienced anything. You never lived your life because you kept doing what the machine told you to do.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Of a security comes from. So depending on where the security is registered, it may have a street name or it may have another kind of name. It may be registered in the broker's name or the investor's actual name if you want to directly register your securities. So and then they also handle things like polling your shareholders, collecting the votes, doing the tabulation on shareholder resolutions. And so a lot of things that really can be handled quite easily by a computer system. And when Bitcoin came out and I managed to wrap my head around this new technology, I realized that we can put all of these features and all of this work can happen on a blockchain, on a system that is completely open, completely transparent, and free. And this is where, a system like this, I think, really has huge benefits because the securities industry, in terms of, all costs are eventually passed on to the customer. And transfer agencies and depositories cost investors billions of dollars per year in fees, which will all go with a system like this, laying the foundation of a new securities industry. And this is only the beginning of what Equibit can be used for. But we'll immediately put billions of dollars back into the pockets of investors as people adopt this system. And new exchanges and new kinds of security services will grow up around the Equibit platform. So Equibit right now is sort of step one in a much larger securities market. And going back through history, again, the securities industry.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast and the Dollar Vigilante. This is our first co-produced video that we've ever done, and that's because a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about in this edition of Anarchast or TDV has a lot to do with financial stuff and also investment. And so for our subscribers at the Dollar Vigilante, we're also including this video. But this is also a past Anarchast guest, and that's why he's on Anarchast as well. It's Chris Horlacher. He's a chartered accountant in the Toronto area in Canada. I've known him for many years. He's been down here to Acapulco, and just like many past Anarchast guests, he's quite entrepreneurial, and he's come up with a new company that's called Equibit. And for people interested in the stock market, interested in anything to do with financial related services, or interested in the blockchain technology, you'll want to pay attention to this. It's very interesting. So Chris, first of all, thanks for coming back on with me. It's been almost 4 years. It's been a long time. You were on episode 15 of Anarchast.
Yeah, and it's great to see all that we've both accomplished since then. We've both been very busy guys, and congratulations on all your success with TDV. I love what you're doing, and keep it up. I think you're doing good work, and hopefully, with what we're talking about today, I'll be also jumping into the mix and making a good contribution here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you're also considering coming down to Acapulco 2016, which we still haven't announced the dates, but we will in the coming weeks. I know you have a busy travel schedule, but hopefully you can make it down because we have pretty much an entire day on cryptocurrencies and blockchain-related technologies at Acapulco, so this would fit in great. So let's get started right away on Equibit. Tell everyone about this idea that you've come up with.
So the idea started years and years ago. I first heard about Bitcoin in about 2010, right about when I started getting into the whole anarcho-capitalist, investment mindset. And so it really excited me. I'd known about peer-to-peer market or peer-to-peer networks before. I'd been using, numerous file sharing programs up until that point. And the concept of digital scarcity really, really excited me because I knew this was going to pave the way for entirely new industries to be built upon this concept. And it's really digital scarcity. I can't really stress that term enough. It's a new word that, in the 21st century, we're going to have to get used to because we're used to unlimited data. You can copy it, you can move it around, you can send it anywhere, you can receive it from anywhere, and there's no limits on this data. But the concept of me taking a piece of my data and giving it to somebody else and I don't have it anymore, that's new to the internet. And it's a big challenge for people to get over that first hurdle. But once you do, a whole new world opens up to you, and the possibilities are just absolutely amazing. And so,
yeah, I agree.
When I realized that we were moving into this kind of an age, the wheels start turning, and being in the securities industry at that time, I was the chief financial officer of Euro-Pacific Canada, which is Peter Schiff's extension of Euro-Pacific Capital into Canada. And so I was, front row seat to the securities industry as it existed today. And what I noticed was that it was basically still a 100-year-old model of doing business for moving securities, just maybe with updated a few updates to the technology in terms of computerization to take care of a lot of the menial tasks. But the structure of the industry is the same as it's been for a century, and it's kind of locked into that shape by government regulations, and it's created certain I wouldn't say monopolies, but there's privileged positions in the network of companies that comes together to create a securities industry that really they're past their expiration date. And this is what Equibit is all about. So experiencing the over-the-counter market the way I did when I was at that brokerage, I got to see how the system currently worked and where the inefficiencies were. And really the component that really kind of stuck in my mind were the depositories and the transfer agents. And these two kinds of companies, they don't seem to do a lot of particularly difficult stuff. Again, what they're doing is they're essentially just doing bookkeeping entries, a lot like a central bank will, where it's just adjusting people's accounts and it's moving securities from one account into another account and changing the name on them. You also, this is where terms like like the street name started as as an over-the-counter marketplace. The shares were all private. There were no big, the New York Stock Exchange didn't start until hundreds of years after the concept of a stock was invented. I think the first joint stock corporations were from the Netherlands back in the 1600s. So they were around quite a while before the London Stock Exchange popped up. And so a stock exchange is a market maker. They take all of the bids and asks and they match them together and they form a price. And on an OTC, it's much different. Transactions are usually done one-to-one. Both parties know each other, or they're acting through a broker. And so Equibit makes this whole process extremely efficient by taking out the need for a central depository and a transfer agent. We now have a decentralized platform with world-class security that is real-time, 24/7, instantaneous settlement, and unforgeable securities. And there's a few other twists in, going back to forgeable securities. I mean, can you believe in this day and age, forged securities it's a bigger problem now than it's ever been. Securities fraud is running wild out there. And so many people out there are just conjuring up bonds or stocks, and some people who do that call themselves central banks or governments, and they're probably the best at it. So the industry it seemed to me that the industry was just begging for a solution like this. And I happen to feel that I was blessed with being